goodness. What happened? Oh, your thing started vibrating. Okay. Oh,
keep your hands to yourself.
Keep my hands to myself. My hands are not touching anything. Oh, it ended. Oh, shoot.
And it's over.
It's not over. I don't understand. Okay. So, not sure what happened on that one, but we're going to continue on as we're waiting on everybody to get here real quick. And a little technical difficulties. Hey, McDonald's. Hey. How are you?
Hello there.
Hey. We were getting ready to get started and I messed up the technology again.
Oh, and we were on a live thing at first on Facebook Live.
Oh, you're on Facebook Live?
We were. And I was like, wait a minute, and I forgot about the Zoom.
Either way, with Zoom, you can talk back to us. On Facebook Live, you can't.
Right.
So it's all about you. We wanted to, at first it was just going to be Zoom. And then I said, everybody might want to see this. So let's go ahead and put it on Facebook Live. And then we'll still keep the Zoom because that's more where people sign up like you. And then you can go ahead and discuss things with us if you have questions instead of waiting so you get first priority. So I'm going to get back on live now.
Okay.
So,
My wife says I can talk.
Well, I just didn't want it to be dead air.
She didn't tell me what to say. She told me to talk.
Anyway, he understands. Y'all understand. No, I have to put the hashtags because that's how Facebook finds people. And they let people know what it is. See? That's okay. He's telling me too much typing.
It's a lot of typing.
You have to type.
Who chose the music at the beginning?
You knew that answer when you asked the question.
I was thinking when you think about sex, what comes to mind? Salt and pepper. Well, if you're a hip hop kid of the 90s,
I only know hymns and praise and worship songs.
Well, that's true because with all the children he sings, my hope is built on nothing less but Jesus Christ and righteousness. Children, like the baby want to go to sleep.
Children need to hear that kind of stuff. It teaches them discipline.
They need to hear the hymns, huh?
Yeah, no rockabye baby, no nothing. It's always my hope.
And they know to sit down when it's thunder and lightning outside too.
Oh.
They don't do that anymore.
Silly. So let's talk about sex. We're going to go ahead and get into it today and talk about sex and intimacy and the difference and the similarities because you would be very, very surprised. Oh, there go with my technology again. Go ahead, Brian.
Okay. Talking about sex and intimacy. And this is a very interesting conversation. Whenever we do seminars or we do sessions on sex and intimacy, we find really how far apart men and women are. And it's especially interesting because they're always in the same room, yet they seem to be on completely different sides of this issue. So this is a good way to sort of marry those issues. I'm a firm believer that even though the world would have you believe the men and women have been different since Adam and Eve, they have been separate since Adam and Eve, everything that happened to Adam and Eve happened collectively. Adam and Eve were both present. So there was no separation until they left Eden. And if Eden's our template, we've got to try to get back to Eden. Hey, Donna Laura's our praise and worship song.
So we're also going to talk about, so if people watch the replay on this, we're going to go ahead and let you know who we are. I'm Shanice Cleckley, and this is LeBrian Cleckley. We're with Our Marriage Rocks. Our Marriage Rocks is an enrichment company and coaching service that we do because we want people to stay married and love each other better. And so what we're doing now is the Love Better Now Challenge. So Love Better Now Challenge is day 4 444. We have one more day to go. And today we're talking about sex.
In full effect.
Oh, yeah, he's trying to rhyme now.
No.
Okay. No? Okay, good. So we're going to talk about sex, and we're going to talk about intimacy and get into it. So, number one, I remember that Brian and I went to a conference. I used to do sexual reproduction and women's health advocacy for a company, for a nonprofit here in Columbia, which is a wonderful organization. And when we did that, I went to a conference once in Washington, which was for a religious coalition. And they were talking about sex in the church and how we can get sex and relationships to talk more in the church. And this lady did a speech, and I don't even remember her name, but she started the conversation off and saying, I talk about sex and God everywhere I go. That was her first line. It's like, okay, I like this lady. Let me see what she's talking about. All right, I like sex and God too. So I said, and she was talking about how sex is ordained. And that was a wonderful thing. That being a sexual being is something that God has given us. It's not something we need to squash, something that we need to let go. You are a sexual being because God made us that way. And he put it in the confines of marriage so that we can create oneness and so that you can physically feel the oneness that you're doing spiritually with him and experience pure love or true love with someone on earth who can bring you in. So I thought that was like the most fascinating thing. Not that I've never heard it before, but it was just still wonderful to be able to hear an ordained minister at the time sit here and in the middle of a church on Howard University's campus, which was gorgeous, and say she talked about sex and marriage everywhere I go. So I had to steal her line and say, I talk about sex and marriage everywhere I go.
She really does.
I do, and I like it.
She really does.
Because we're going to go over one of my all-time favorite scriptures. Where is it? Oh, there it is right there. No, wait. Yeah. 1 Corinthians 7:3. Husbands, render unto your wife due benevolence. That means you got to do it. I like it. I like it a lot. You had no choice. You got to do it. Yeah, he's supposed to do it. But the first part said, husbands, render unto your wife, which means I come first. Can you tell them my love language is physical touch? I know physical touch is not always sex, but it's a good part of it. It's a great part of it.
Yeah, you've been waiting for this.
I've been waiting for this one. So, sex between husband and wife and intimacy is magical, if you want to use that kind of word.
It's black girl magic.
It's black girl magic, black boy magic. But it is. It's wonderful. It's that connection between husband and wife is a connection that you should not have with another. It's on another plane that when you give it to another person, you should feel like something's wrong. Because sharing that type of intimacy with someone is one of the closest things that you can get to understanding unconditional love.
That's the basis of the whole soul tie movement that's going on about how when you have sex with someone, it's more than just the transfer of physical bodily fluids. It's actually the transfer of your soul. You're giving a piece of your soul to someone else, and that person retains that soul for the rest of your life. So it's kind of spooky to me because I'm from the pop culture. I always think about vampires and zombies and like this vampire has bitten me and now he's got a part of my soul for the rest of my life. And we're walking around with all the souls of the people that you had sex with. It's just nasty when you think about it.
But you do leave a residue.
The residue, yeah, that makes you feel better.
Oh, but it is. Regardless of how you feel, it's a residue.
How you doing? I got some residual Janine waiting on me here. But other than that, I'm feeling all right.
Some residual
Janine. So.
Okay. So we know that a spousal connection with God is pure and anointed. Oh, here comes the little one because. Hi-ya! Okay. So that connection is pure and that connection is anointed. We should cherish it and treat it like a gift because it is. When there's many people who cannot connect with their spouse on that level, being it physical, where they're injured or they have some type of health issue that's going on. So being able to connect on the physical level is actually very special, especially when you're first married. And if you married when you're young, you may think that you're going to have the same sex life all through your marriage, and you're not. Physical age and different things and desires go up and down. So that physical part of your life will not always be the same. And your levels will go up and down. And you need to discuss that and have as much openness as you can with your spouse so that they'll be able to so you'll be able to understand. There may be a time like when I had my baby and I had Spencer. The doctor tells you 6 weeks you cannot do anything physical. So if you are a couple who are used to doing something every other day or even once a week or heck, even once a month, 6 weeks is longer than any of that. So that you have not got your physical needs taken care of based on the doctor's visit, which is a lot of time why we have those twins who are 11 months apart. I'm not saying it's bad, but that's why we know why. Because you're also the most fertile.
It's perfectly fine to wait 6 weeks, but you do not want 2 children 11 months apart.
You don't?
I would not suggest that.
I don't, because our children, the last 2 are 13 years apart. That's too much. So I said, so nevertheless, heard some ding, shiny things make me. Anyway, back to where I was talking about. Anyway, so 6 weeks. So during that time, there's a lot of things that can be a caveat to the physical connection. So let's go into intimacy. While sex is a part of your relationship, intimacy is that bond that holds you together. So there's 5 types of intimacy. You have spiritual intimacy, recreational intimacy, intellectual intimacy, physical intimacy. And this one? It's 4. I'm sorry. There's 4 types. Spiritual, recreational, intellectual, and physical. So, I'm sorry. I feel like I'm missing something. I'm not? I am. And emotional. Okay, I knew it was 5. And emotional intimacy. So, at some level, you should have all of those within your relationship, which you do. So let's go over the first one, which is the one that keeps you together, or the one that is the hub and the wheel in the middle, which is spiritual.
Spiritual intimacy is the soul tie. It's the first and the most foundational type of intimacy. I would suggest that even though we're physically attracted to people first, it may feel that way. What really attracts us to people, what really keeps us going back, what should keep us going back, is the spiritual intimacy. If your spiritual intimacy is high, then everything else falls into place, and it's less intense. As long as you got spiritual intimacy, you can get the rest of those. It's very hard to gather spiritual intimacy with all you got about somebody, if all you're attracted to somebody is their body, or even if it's just their mind. If you don't have a connection on a spiritual level, if you all don't worship the same God, if you don't spend time with your spouse talking about God, talking about faith, talking about what you believe, then you're missing out. You're not really intimate on all the other levels. And that's something that's a challenge for everybody. It's a challenge for me as a minister to really take the time to have some type of Bible study with my spouse. I mean, you don't have to draw out a lesson plan and come with slides and all that, but it's important to be able to have deep spiritual, theological type of discussion with your wife. That builds that intimacy, that sets that foundation, that groundwork.
And I would have to say, there's nothing sexier than my husband praying for me. When he prays for me, why are you looking at me like that?
You go ahead.
I guess he didn't know, but he does know that I also have this little thing when he puts on his clergy and he put on that little collar and he dressing up there in the black. I don't know. I just kind of look at him like, ooh, wow, you real sexy up there right now. Maybe I'm just a horn dog. Who knows? Nevertheless, I like it. I like it a lot.
You stay
I
on
do.
track.
Okay.
You stay on focus.
But praying together is one thing that keeps that spiritual intimacy together. And because we, like we said before, we are Christians, and we go from that level, being able to connect with that God level really centers our souls. The next is called recreational intimacy, and it's exactly what it sounds like. You create this bond and you solidify this bond by doing stuff together. It doesn't have to be outdoors. It's just the fact that you do things together where you have time to laugh and to play and to have a good time, where you can just walk outside, you get out your comfort zone. Most of the time you get this when you're dating because you're always doing something. But by the time you are in a relationship and you've been there for a while, you forget to do it, which is why we instituted in Our Marriage Rocks date night. Because you need to go out. You need to do something. You need to have something where you have an outside force that partners you together with the outside world so that you two can experience things together. So it's wonderful. Next is called intellectual intimacy. So I remember when you're looking at, when you're dating and they say, wow, he's great to look at, but nothing to talk to. I really couldn't get down on that level because I really need somebody who I can talk to, who I can have political conversations with, someone who I can delight with and looking at a movie and we can discuss. That's intellectual intimacy, where your activity is connecting over discussing topics and certain things. We really now go back and forth talking about the political climate that's right now. LeBrian is a heavy reader of blogs and articles, and I don't have time to read that much on that. I read mostly books and novels and nonfictions. So with him being more in tune with current events, he is able to let me know what's going on, and I can say whether or not I've heard it. And when it piques my interest, I may go back and read it, but yet we're having a discussion about what's happening in the world. Before it went off the air, we used to look at Al Jazeera all the time, which gives us I said it right. I know. I used to call it Al Jazeera. But it's Al Jazeera. So we would watch Al Jazeera, which I don't know, is news. It's the news channel for nerds, where they do a world view of everything. And that was just like so enlightening for us that we were sitting in the bed in the middle of the night talking about what episode is on. Discussing things like, we watch something called Vice television, and they have these hard-nosed documentaries. So we are documentary buffs that we like to see those kind of things. So connecting on an intellectual level is really important in order to stimulate your mind and keep that relationship spicy.
Next is physical intimacy. Of course, physical intimacy. Physical intimacy, it means sex, but it doesn't have to be sex. Many times, physical intimacy is just basic cuddling. Just sitting down next to your spouse on the bus on the way to work or driving. My wife said to me the other day that she just really enjoyed driving because it's an opportunity just to be close to them. Like I said, as men, when we think physical, we always think, right to the cookie, right to the prize. But again, women, sometimes if you just cuddle with your woman and cuddle with your spouse, that goes a long way. It can make an entire day. Any type of intimacy pays dividends for a man. We like to have sex, and it's satisfying. And truthfully, cuddling is great. It's really nice just to lay down next to your spouse sometime and just watch TV, or just talk to one another, or just listen to the rain on the roof. That's an incredibly intense, real form of intimacy.
Which part of you? Oh, I heard. So as LeBrian was saying with the men and looking at the physical, we tend to think of men wanting physical intimacy more, and women wanting, which we're going to go over next, emotional intimacy, which is okay. And it's nature as well as it's social. It's a social thing. We have not let men be able to express their emotional side. So it might not be comfortable for a lot of men to do it. And they tend to think that physical, when they cuddle, will lead to something else, which is okay. But guys, let me tell you, sometimes we just want to sit there and cuddle, like Ryan said, and listen to the rain. That's all. We really don't want nothing else. I just need to physically feel you right next to me. And because physical intimacy and physical, you can also look at it this way, before I get to that, is that sex is a part of intimacy, but intimacy is not a part of sex all the time. Or no, other way around. Intimacy is always a part of sex, but sex doesn't always mean intimate. That's better. Because you have to be intimate and physically touch to have sex. But sometimes people are detached and they're having sex and they turn it into just a physical thing and don't realize how much that they're sharing with the other person by just having that physical touch.
And of course, that has its root. That has its roots, I should say, in sin. In the world, the world takes what was supposed to be very sacred and very private and very, very much a part of a connection and sanitizes it. So, like I said, now you can have sex without being intimate with someone. Now it is just a physical act. We've commercialized it and turned it into something other than what it began.
And in marriage, that's our opportunity to bring it back exactly like it was supposed to be, in order for us to connect, in order for us to remain one physically as we're remaining one spiritually, emotionally, and all those other things. So because sex is such a biblical thing, I'm actually going to pull out some Bible verses on you, such as Proverbs 5, 18 and 19, which, okay, have you ever read the Song of Solomon? That's really rather deep. If you read the Song of Solomon and look at the illustrations and the imagery in it, and when he's talking about, ooh, she's like, I delight in you with your dark skin. I'm like, oh, suck it now, That's like, you better go ahead and talk that mess. But Proverbs, it says, let your fountain, and this is talking to men because it's going to say wife. It says, let your fountain be blessed and rejoice in your wife and the wife of your youth. Let a lovely deer, a graceful doe, let her breast fill you at times with delight. Be intoxicated always in her love. I'm like, that is wonderful. What's wrong?
I'm scared.
You scared? Oh my goodness. Okay, well go with daddy. He's not going to be.
Daddy, I want to tell you.
Well, I don't need you right here. Sorry for this right now. I need for you to take him out. Okay, screaming baby number last one, who wants the attention. We did good. We got 4 nights without him doing that. 4 nights. Now that's an accomplishment, right? Yes. Spencer, look, Daddy's got Dougie for you. Brian? See, for those who don't know, I actually stay at home with Spencer. So we're kind of attached at times. And he also loves to look at himself. So he knows that we're on video. Just take him out, Brian. Just take him out. Really? But he loves to look at himself. Spencer will take the camera and do his own selfies on the phone and then play it back little by little just so he can see himself. Very interesting little 3-year-old. Very, very interesting. But back to what I was saying. Proverbs 5, 18 and 19. Let your fountain be blessed and rejoice in the wife of your youth. A lovely deer, a graceful doe. Let her breast fill you at times with delight. Be intoxicated always in her love. That's pretty sensual right there. Let her breast delight you. So yeah, that's a wonderful thing. And then, like I was saying before, of 1 Corinthians 7, 2 and 4. So the NIV version says, but since sexual immorality is occurring, each man should have sexual relations with his own wife, and each woman with her own husband. The husband should fulfill his marital duty to his wife, and likewise the wife to her husband. The wife does not have authority over her own body, but yields it to her husband in the same way. The husband does not have authority over his own body, but yields it to his wife. Do not deprive each other, except perhaps by mutual consent for a time, so that you may devote yourself to prayer. Then come together again, so that Satan cannot tempt you because of the lack of self-control. All of that Basically, you need to have sex, have it often, unless y'all agree to it. And if you don't agree to it, then maybe you're doing something else, and you agree to each other not to have sex. But you got to come back together, because if you hadn't had sex with each other, Saint gonna tempt you for you to go do something else. I don't understand how much more plain that could be. Have sex. Then now we've gotten that clear. We're gonna go to emotional intimacy. Emotional intimacy is sharing of one's own experience with one another. How you share with each other of things that you have that's going on. So like intellectual intimacy is when you're talking about stuff and you're dominating and you're going with your thoughts. Emotional intimacy is experiencing the issues that you have or the emotion that you have as you're doing it. So I can talk about current events, but I need to emotionally tell him how it felt when it happened. With all of we had this type of intimacy, I feel, when we were going over when all of the current murders and men getting shot in the street and hands up and everything. And emotionally, I broke down. And because I sat there and realized I live in a household of men. And I have a husband and a 16-year-old son and a 3-year-old child. So I have a husband who's out there that if he has his hands up or if he reaches for his wallet, because he doesn't carry his wallet in the front pocket or in the front, I was emotionally distraught because I'm like, baby, can you please just put your wallet in the dash so we can see. I have a 16-year-old who's very quiet, and his quiet may be mistaken for menacing. And then I have a 3-year-old who knows nothing of the world, who's so innocent. And how am I going to tell him about what's going on? So LeBron had to talk to me, and we prayed and we discussed and we talked about the issue that started from an intellectual thing that went into something totally emotional, where he expressed his not necessarily fear, but his understanding of what happens for him as a man, as a Black man, and what he must go through, and how he must discuss that with Jared, our 16-year-old. So it became a connecting point that we never thought would happen. And so he was, which was my next point, shepherding us to let us know how we're going to handle it as a family and what his thoughts of. And I was shepherding him to give him the space to not judge him, to let him be emotional in that moment and know that it's strength and not weakness, that he can emotionally discuss something.
Which is a very good point, because many times as men, it's pretty easy for us to do intellectual intimacy because that's almost second nature. Men are very analytical, but when we feel ourselves sliding into the emotional intimacy, many times we shut down. And as the scripture says, it's the man's job to shepherd a woman's heart, to shepherd her emotional intimacy. On the flip side, it's the woman's job to shepherd the physical side of it. And which I always love. I love that dynamic that the Lord would give us authority over the thing that we're the most
weakest.
Well, the most unfamiliar with,
vulnerable.
Most vulnerable. We were to shepherd a woman's heart, and we're very vulnerable and very guarded with our own emotions. So that's a whole nother Bible study. But that's how if you open yourself up to intellectual intimacy, keep in mind to remind yourself to constantly be aware that this may step into emotional intimacy, and that's okay. That's a way for you to do what the Lord has called you as a man to do for your wife.
And a lot of times women feel their highest when they're emotionally connected, and men when they're physically connected. And as LeBron said, they go hand in hand. So when go back over a little bit, we discussed, so when couples start to feel disconnected, 9 times out of 10, intimacy is the issue. One of the 5 portions of intimacy has not been related. It's not just sex. It's one of the 5 things have not been taken care of. And you need to discuss and see which one of those 5 things it is. Sex and intimacy should never be used as a weapon. And it should never be withheld intentionally. It should always be under mutual consent, that you know what you're doing. Well, he did such and such, or I ain't giving him none. That is totally, totally uncalled for. I can understand if it was done because of a trust issue And you can discuss that because that's what needs to happen, but you don't use it as a weapon. You let them know you just don't feel comfortable doing it, and you discuss it, not as a weapon or retaliation. Intimacy built on those several planes that we just talked about, which is spiritual, emotional, physical, intellectual, and recreational. Spiritual is that deeper level that goes with the soul and spirit. Emotional is how we feel about it. Physical is touch. Intellectual is our thought. And recreational is our action. So all of these must be in place in order for us to connect.
And I want to also say a word that they all can be shared with somebody other than your spouse, which is why you have to be very careful how intimate you become with people that aren't your spouse. Because you may be saying, well, I didn't do anything with that person. We didn't have physical sex. But you spend a lot of time talking about intellectual things. Or you shared something very close to your heart with this person that's not your spouse. So even though you didn't have a physical relationship with them, you shared a level of intimacy that maybe you should not have because you're not married to them. So always be conscious of where your intimacy level is with people.
Exactly. Because there's no such things. I hear people say all the time, this is my work husband, my work wife. No, nobody should have you on that level. Only one person should be your husband and your wife.
And who can afford a wife and a work wife?
You know what?
It's very expensive.
That's why you don't have it. And men and women experience intimacy and isolation differently. Isolation meaning there's a disconnect in one of those intimate levels. And that men tend to go to the physical in order to react to that isolation, and women tend to go to the emotional when they react. But if we are going through the techniques we learned earlier, such as the communication and how you can talk to your spouse, going back to what is their love language? Have I been doing those different things before it happened? Am I clear on what's going on? That connection that's going on. And you go back to all those things we learned in day 1 through 3, you could probably try to figure out through discussion on what may be happening. And understand that recapturing intimacy can take time. Just be patient. It may not happen immediately, but if you continue to keep trying and you go and you do it more and more and more, then it'll be there. And then you'll know what's happening and you'll know what's going on. So you have an assignment tonight. Before we go to your assignment, are there any questions?
What category would oral sex come in?
That's physical because you're touching it. That's a physical release. That's a touching thing.
Now you will run into people that will tell you that it's spiritual as well, but really it's definitely physical. To be fair, it's probably the most physical. It's the most controversial. We get a lot of questions about oral sex on both sides, and especially from married couples, because for so long at the church or our spiritual leaders have not talked about sex, and by not talking about sex at any level, nobody's saying you should preach it from the pulpit, but there has to be a space somewhere within the house of God where you can discuss things that married people do, because marriage is ordained. So if married people are doing it, then it's well, my wife is an expert at this. If married people, if you're having sex, then that means you're covered as a married couple. God shields his eyes. He chooses not to look at it. So many times there are activities that people want to do where one spouse may say, well, that's nasty, or that's not right. Well, if you're married, if it doesn't hurt or demean or embarrass your spouse, then it's okay. It's not a sin because you're married.
As long as you are mutually agreed up to the sexual act. It must be mutual. If it's not mutual,
then it's not okay.
Then it's not okay. But just understand that, because as Brian said, we get so many questions about it because the world has made it kind of taboo. And then
now the world wants to change it to not be
taboo. And then our young people, they look at oral sex as being, I'm not really having sex. Right. Yes. I have to let them know, yes, you are. You're still connecting. You're still doing an act. You're still sharing. whether you're being physical or not, you're still doing it. So that's our take on it. And I like Brian said. Oh, I'm sorry. Like Brian said, I do say, hey, the marriage bed is undefiled. That's all I got to say. As long as y'all agree, the marriage bed is undefiled. So, we have any other questions?
Or did that even answer your question?
Did I answer your question?
Yeah. I just wanted to know where it fit in with the 5 thing you were talking about.
Right.
Where it's coming physical or activity or where it was.
Physical.
Physical.
Yeah, physical. So when you get your email, your assignment is going to be called soul gazing. And it is a tantric exercise where you're touching, but the purpose is for you to connect on a deeper level physically. So just to quickly go over it, because the detailed notes are in there, like how you breathe first and everything else. You're basically connecting, looking into each other's eyes, and you look at each other and you're going to connect. You can hold your head together, however you're going to do it, but you have to touch quietly in a quiet space, and you set your room, and then you breathe and you try to match your breath, and you stay like that for at least 5 to 6 minutes until you feel you need to break away, and you stay connected as long as you possibly can that you want to. We ask that you do it for at least 5 minutes because you got to give yourself time to relax and get used to it. Some people think it's corny, but it's not. It'll be okay. So we're going to demonstrate quickly. So if you're sitting, you will touch knee to knee or however you want to touch. I prefer to touch his hands. That's me. We also start off a lot of times by just touching our heads and then backing up and look at each other. So first
sometimes we don't back up.
Sometimes we don't back up. But first you start like this. And then once you feel yourself centered, you back up and you look into each other's eyes, the left eye. And as you're doing it, you're going to see subtle changes in your spouse. You're going to see their face change. They might soften. They may relax, but you're staring at them and you're looking at them because you're trying to see the eyes are the window to the soul. And you're connecting on a level where you're letting the space and everything just kind of flow through you. Or if you want to get metaphysical, like the energy. Yeah, I ain't all into that. But what you're doing, though, is you're creating a connection so that you're actually looking at each other. You're looking through each other, with each other, and you're not necessarily just staring at them.
And the goal isn't to think of something to say. The goal is really just to see if you can match your spouse's intimacy. And
to just be in the moment.
Be in their space.
It's just to be in their space.
You'll find yourself trying to match each other's breath. And then once you're breathing at the same level and you're looking at each other, if there's something to be said, it'll be said. But if not, that's fine too. That becomes just that, 4 or 5 minutes that you have as a couple together.
Because a lot of folks have not connected in a while. We've seen people do it and all of a sudden they just start crying with each other. We've seen folks who they just started crying. They've done different things and they don't know what else to do. So that's your homework for tonight. Any questions?
Nope.
What if you can't make it 5 minutes? Because my husband is silly. And what if we end up?
The goal is to keep trying.
The goal is 5 minutes, but if all you can commit to is 30 seconds, you make it the most positive, powerful 30 seconds
that you can make it do. But just try again. Just keep starting. Tell them you can't think. You can't think about it. You just gotta be. Just
even
don't
if your
think.
5 minutes is a minute 5 times a day.
Exactly. Just try 5 minutes as much. Just don't think. Don't be looking like you so serious. Don't look. Just
I'll tell you
breathe.
I'll tell you what you can do. And this is something that we do. You determine a time each day that you can spend talking to your spouse, even if it's for 40 seconds. Even if it's just, hey, just checking to make sure everything's all right. The house ain't on fire. The kids ain't broke nothing, have they? Okay, bye. And you make that your thing. At 1 o'clock, I'm gonna call my wife and check and see how she's doing. And I'm gonna give her from 1 o'clock to 1:05. Hey, you might even give her to 1:10. I know it's tough. I know.
And then when you get home that evening, you've already talked about it. So let's go. Then you got time to just kind of be quiet. You can also do it laying in the bed with each other. You know, right now we're just demonstrating sitting up, but maybe he will be less silly if he lays in bed and y'all are sitting there laying and looking at each other. Okay. But try. Just keep trying. Just try as much as you possibly can because it'll create a space.
Yeah. Keep praying, okay?
She said keep praying.
I'm going to keep praying. So do y'all have how did the homework go last night? Was everybody okay? If you haven't done it, that's fine because we're going to go over everything tomorrow. But, you know, if you haven't done it, try to do your vows tonight because I want to see how they come out for you.
I really want to do your vows tonight because I'm doing the wedding Saturday and I have to write the ceremony. So if y'all got some vow ideas, I really appreciate if you did your homework tonight and send it to me. That would save me all kinds of time and energy. Y'all ain't got to. I'm just saying it'd be nice to do.
The wedding is Sunday.
Well, you know, I like being ahead of the game.
So you want us to write them out. We said them to each other, but we didn't write them out.
You gotta write them down.
You gotta write them down. You need to write them down.
It's very, very important.
Because we want you to go back to them. So write them down so that you can continue to go back to them and look and say, you remember, this is what we said.
And make sure
it's almost like you're writing the vision and you're making it plain.
When you send them, don't put your names in them because you don't want me to read your name doing somebody else's wedding ceremony. I'm just saying.
But I want you to write them down as an affirmation so you can go back to it. No.
It's just me.
How about y'all pray for me, okay? Pray for me. Every time he step up in the pulpit, I sit there and I'm like, Jesus, you need to be a fence today.
It's a good thing to cover yourself with prayer when I preach because no telling what's coming out.
Ooh, my husband is hilarious. He introduced people when they come up to the dais and they, you know, and our speaker for the day, his last words is coming to the stage is Reverend, blah, blah, blah. Coming to the stage, really? Really? Yeah.
What good is a hype man that don't hype the club?
Oh.
No, that's right.
Hype man. I don't want no dead hype man.
He's your friend and coming to the stage. He's your friend and mine. Here at Pleasant Hill Baptist Church and God and Christ and Juke Joint.
Pastor such and such. If the praise team was on fire, say the praise team was on fire.
He said that praise team was on fire. I almost shouted. Y'all know I don't shout.
Pleasant Hill praise team and dance band and show.
He will say that if he really feels it. Oh my God. Church is always live. So we'll see y'all next time, okay?
All right.
Okay, bye.
Bye.